Shalom warriors, shalom Israel partners, shalom Abraham friends, and welcome back to Israel. We are finally, after 5 months and 1 week, we have returned home. And this is such a great feeling to be home, to be on the soil of the Holy Land, to be in Israel finally. We had a great journey, corresponding from the United States, from Mexico, but after a lot of hardships, I must admit, we were able to return back to Israel. You remember you were praying together with us about the lockdown and the closing of the airports, and eventually my amazing wife in Bali was able to fill up all the right forms, and we were able to return back to Israel in spite of the lockdown. And unfortunately, I'm coming to you from home and not from the outside, because we have to go through 2 weeks of quarantine right now. We took a COVID test when we came from Mexico and it was negative, thank God. We landed in Israel, took another COVID test and was negative. And probably, if everything goes by the rules and everything goes like we hope, in 8 more days, because we're already 2 days down here, in 8 more days, we'll take a third COVID test, which would be negative, and then we will able maybe to shorten a little bit the period of time, and instead of 2 weeks, we'll get out in 10 days, and we will be able to return back to our home. So we didn't come to talk about us. We're here to give you the updates about Israel in general, and we will start though with the Torah teaching about the Torah portion of this very week. We're still reading from the book of Exodus, starting from Exodus 30, somewhere around the middle of the book, somewhere around the middle of this chapter. This Torah portion of this week from Exodus 30 to 34 is called Ki Tisa, and the idea is about God now qualifying Moses and the people of Israel to their journey in the desert, but also for the continuation of the building of his home in the desert, his tabernacle. And this is a very important Torah portion, because right on this Torah portion, the people of Israel are literally saved from extermination. And on the other hand, they get the rules and the instructions how they can continue to please God, to worship God, to work with God, so he's not going to turn back again into punishing them. So what's the story here in this Torah portion? Moses is going up to the heavens, to the top of Mount Sinai, to receive the 10 commandments from God. As we know, they were written with the finger of God. And during his time, he's gone up to the heavens for 40 nights and 40 days. But the people of Israel down there, some of them, they thought it's only for 40 days. They miscounted and they start to complain to Aaron, what's happening? We lost our leader. Moses is not here. God will disappear because God was only walking together with Moses. We need another God. And they put pressure on him to do one of the most horrific sins of the people of Israel, to create an idol, the golden calf. And within 1 day, they get her. Aaron was trying to detain them, to hold them back. He says, you know what? I need a certain amount of gold. Go and fetch for it and whatever. These people are so quick, so fast. Within 1 day, they come with all these products, with all these golds that he needed, and he needs to mold it into a golden calf. And when Moses comes down from the mountain and he sees the people worshiping the idols of Egypt again, he's so frustrated. He takes the commandments, he takes the Torah, he breaks it down on the floor. He gets so furious, and God is getting so furious as well. God is literally talking to Moses and telling him, Moses, listen to me. I'm going to take you, your people, your family. I'm going to turn you into the new Israel. I'm going to eliminate all these people, all these generations that couldn't settle for what I've given them throughout the desert, and they want to go back to other gods. But Moses with his compassion, with his huge heart, he's not selfish at all. He could say, you know what, okay, just, take care of my family. But no, he's a great leader. He's standing there on the edge and he's talking to God and he says, God, You have to keep your promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are your people that you brought out. What do you want? The Egyptians to mock you and to mock us and to say, what happened? You just took these people out to kill them in the desert? Please, God, show your merciful side and spare these people. And God changes his mind. Here we are. We spoke about it so many times. We are worshiping, we are praying, we are praising, we are actually believing in a God that can change his mind. That's why prayer is so important. Sometimes we see that everything is taking us towards doom and gloom and everything is kind of predetermined. No, never give up. We can always stand tall, stand high, and with our good heart and with our pure heart, we can turn to God and always try to change the verdict. Always speak to the merciful heart of God. And God literally gives mercy, spares the people of Israel. And Moses is going back to the mountain to receive more and more of God's words, to receive the Torah. He's going up there to receive the new 10 commandments. And during that very time, God also nominates the right people to keep on building his tabernacle, building the altar. He gives more and more rules to the people of Israel. The most important one is not to forget his 3 different special holidays: Passover, Tabernacle, and Sukkot and Pentecost, when the people of Israel are going to come in front of his home, in front of the tabernacle, and later on in front of the temple, and to bring their sacrifices to God. So all these instructions are being given here in the desert for the people of Israel through Moses. When he comes down the second time, the people of Israel cannot even look at his face because he's so shiny from the very presence of God, where he was spending his time up on the mountain with God, that he had to use a mask, just like now during the times of the COVID. It's so funny, he used to put a mask over his face when he spoke to the people because he was so bright, shiny, and they couldn't even look at his face. Only when he encountered his private time with God, he would take off his mask and look to God face to face. This is Moses, who was the amazing, the most incredible leader of the people of Israel, who took them through all the hardships of the desert to bring them all the way to the verge of the promised land. So we are dealing with intense, amazing, very special leadership, and I want to connect it to the times we're in right now in Israel. Right now, during this time in Israel, we are seeing challenge after challenge of the leadership. We see that within 2 years, we are entering into a 4th terms of elections. We see that the people of Israel, just like the hard-necked people down there in the desert, they don't accept what was God's verdict in all the other 3 elections, and they are challenging the leadership of today. I don't know, I know for sure that God has a plan, and we have to pray for the plan of God. I don't know now what's going to happen in less than 20 days, 18 days from now, on March 23rd, we're going to go into that next round of elections. I don't know who's going to be elected. I don't know what type of coalition we're going to have, but we have to pray now, pray more than ever, in a lot of determination and in depth, from the depth of our heart, for the Lord God of Israel to eventually bring forth the right leader with the right amount of support, political support, so he can lead and govern the people of Israel. Look what's happening in Israel right now. Today, other nations from the European Union, they don't trust the European Union anymore with their fight against the COVID. Denmark is sending her prime minister. Austria is sending the chancellor. They're coming here to Israel because we know that the enemies of Israel are not holding still. The Iranians are coming closer and closer. We heard that they've been, there was an Iranian ship that released all kinds of different oil near the shores of Israel, and just contaminating the shores of Israel. We heard about the attack that took place in the Gulf of Persia against an Israeli-owned ship with rockets and missiles. The enemies of Israel, Hezbollah, keep on threatening Israel all the time. Hamas is threatening Israel. The international community, the Hague Court, is already now conducting a very special they call it trial now, that they want to start against Israel, saying that Israel committed war crimes. I mean, Israel, a democracy, committed war crimes. The world is coming against us. This type of hatred, anti-Semitism, and this jealousy is just rising up, growing up higher and higher, taller and taller from all over the place. We know that Benjamin Netanyahu, through some messengers, sent a message to Joe Biden and to the American administration to help us out against the International Court in Hague. And I know that the Americans spoke up and they said that this is illegal, not legit, what the international community is trying to do to Israel. So we're seeing that there is a building of a bond that is returning now between Israel and America. We just got a letter from Joe Biden writing about his special relationships and all the years that he worked together with the prime ministers of Israel through the history, and he sent it to the new museum that has been rebuilt in Tel Aviv now, the Museum of the Jewish People. So we're seeing that the relationship between Israel and America are firm and strong. And that's something very encouraging, that our prayers are working, because it's really, in the end of the day, it's God who nominates kings and presidents and leaders, and we trust in God. So what I want you to do together with us this very, very special week, when we are thinking about this horrific scene and about the way the people of Israel returned back to God and sacrificed their sacrifices and committed themselves to God once again, that's what I want us to do. I want us in the light of the Torah portion, in the light of what's happening now between Israel and America, in the light of reconciliation, I want us to stand still and firm and strong and reconciliate between ourselves, and definitely reconciliate with the Lord God of Israel, who is the one who makes everything happen for all of us. I want you, please, to hold your hands together with us for unity. Please, Lord God of Israel, this is the time for us to unite, to defeat the enemies of Israel and the United States, to let all these jealous people that looks at unbelievable jealousy at the international relationships and in the bilateral relationship between Israel and America with jealousy, to stop, to cease, and for the will of God to come forth. I love you a lot. This is here Doobie. Shabbat Shalom. Bye for now.